honey, if you see this, if you're out there, you can come to me. I'm not mad at you. I'm worried about you. Your family's worried about you.
In Blacksburg, Virginia, the usual calm of this college town was sharply disrupted on a cold January night in 2016. This community, nestled in the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains and typically alive with the vibrant energy of Virginia Tech, was about to be shaken by a disappearance that echoed through the streets with a chilling impact. 13-year-old Nicole Lovell was more than just a middle school student. She was a survivor. From a tender age of 10 months, she had battled with a liver transplant, a condition that tethered her daily to a strict regimen of life-saving pills that prevented her body from rejecting her transplanted organ. Despite these challenges, Nicole approached life with zest. She adored her cats, expressed herself through art, and found joy in singing. Online, she explored social media with an innocent curiosity, seeking connections in digital conversations, unaware of the dangers this virtual world harbored. On the evening of January 27, 2016, Nicole's mother, Tammy, checked in on her daughter as she slept, or so she thought. After saying goodnight, she closed the door, unaware that Nicole had other plans. With precision, Nicole propped her dresser against the door, a makeshift barrier to secure her night's mission. She opened her bedroom window to the biting cold and prepared to meet someone she had befriended online, armed with her phone, backpack, and a blanket emblazoned with characters from an animated film, but critically, not her essential medication. This error in judgment, a decision to leave behind the pills that kept her bodily rejection at bay, set the stage for dire consequences. By morning, the alarm was raised. Nicole's bed was empty, her essentials gone, except for the crucial medication she inadvertently left behind. Her window stood open, a silent testament to her departure. The discovery sent ripples of panic through her family and the police, as the urgency of her medical needs cast a grim shadow over the search efforts. The community was spurred into action, combing the snowy town for any sign of Nicole, their efforts underscored by the knowledge that each passing hour without her medication could be catastrophic. Blacksburg, normally bustling with the innocent chaos of college life, was covered not only by January's cold snow, but also by a chilling silence that fell upon the town as the news of Nicole Lovell's disappearance spread. Early on the morning of January 28, 2016, upon discovering Nicole's empty room, her mother, Tammy Weeks, was gripped with panic. The bedroom window was open, a stark and haunting exit point, showcasing Nicole's desperate escape into the frigid night. Without hesitation, Tammy called the local police, instigating a search that would soon involve the entire community. The Blacksburg police, equipped with urgency and resolve, coordinated with Virginia Tech's extensive network, deploying drones to scour the rugged mountainous landscapes that characterize the area. These drones buzzed over the thickets and frozen grounds, providing a bird's-eye view in the hopes of catching any sign of Nicole. Meanwhile, nearly 1,000 volunteers, including Virginia Tech students, local residents, and even those from neighboring towns, came together in an overwhelming display of community spirit. They combed through the snowy underbrush, calling Nicole's name and praying for a sign. The local media, catching wind of the distressing situation, propelled Nicole's story into the regional spotlight, further amplifying the search efforts. As the first day of searching transitioned into a cold, anxious night, the community braced themselves, holding onto hope despite the growing despair. The search teams, faces numbed by the cold, realized the grim reality that Nicole was not only missing, but in grave danger due to her medical condition. Without her medication, every passing hour diminished her chances of survival, adding a palpable urgency to the ongoing efforts. The integration of ground searches with advanced technology like drones underscored the desperate yet determined endeavors to locate one of their own before it was too late. In the digital shadows of social media, Nicole Lovell found both solace and peril. By January 2016, her online activities had woven a complicated web that went unnoticed by those around her. Through platforms like Kik and Facebook, Nicole, longing for friendship and acceptance, interacted with various users, oblivious to the dangers lurking behind anonymous profiles. Nicole's virtual persona was an escape from the constraints of her medical condition and the isolation it sometimes fostered. It was on these digital playgrounds that she encountered David Eisenhauer, a freshman at Virginia Tech. Eisenhauer, under the guise of Dr. Tombstone, presented himself as a kindred spirit to the lonely Nicole, who was eager to connect with someone she believed understood her. Their conversations, hidden from the watchful eyes of Nicole's family, deepened, setting the stage for the tragic events that followed. By the end of January 27, 2016, their interaction had escalated from casual chats to a planned meeting. Unbeknownst to Nicole, the person she confided in and was about to meet harbored sinister intentions. This online relationship, nurtured through text and instant messages, would prove fatal. Eisenhauer manipulated Nicole's desire for companionship, turning her against the safety nets of her real-world connections. The revelation of these interactions later highlighted the dual nature of technology, a tool for both connection and manipulation. As investigators delved into Nicole's online life, the extent of her digital footprint began to paint a disturbing picture, one that underscored the vulnerability of young, unsuspecting individuals in the face of seasoned predators masquerading as friends online. The digital clues Nicole left behind were crucial in tracing her steps to that fateful night, leading authorities closer to uncovering the grim reality of her disappearance. David Eisenhauer, an 18-year-old freshman at Virginia Tech, came into the academic spotlight not just for his intellectual pursuits, but also for his athletic prowess. Hailing from Columbia, Maryland, he was a star track athlete during his high school years, often celebrated for his distance running skills. His accolades included multiple state championships, which paved his way to one of Virginia's most prestigious engineering programs. At Virginia Tech, Eisenhauer was studying engineering, drawn by the university's robust program and its promise of a bright future. However, beneath his accomplished exterior lurked a more complex personality. Described by peers as introverted and somewhat aloof, he often struggled to form deep personal connections. His social interactions were marked by a sense of detachment, which made it difficult for him to integrate fully into the bustling social life typical of a college freshman. Online, Eisenhauer's persona took on a different hue. On platforms like Kik and Facebook, he was Dr. Tombstone, a moniker that hinted at a darker side. Through these channels, he projected an image that was more confident and outgoing, a stark contrast to his real-world demeanor. It was through these digital interactions that he connected with Nicole Lovell. Their conversations, hidden behind screen names and digital messages, allowed Eisenhauer to manipulate and mislead, ultimately leading to their tragic real-world encounter on January 27, 2016. On the night of January 27, 2016, Nicole Lovell, wrapped in her minion's blanket, quietly got out of her bedroom window, leaving behind the safety of her home. With her backpack and phone in hand, she was prepared to meet David Eisenhauer, whom she trusted and believed to be a friend. The cold didn't deter her. Her focus was on the adventure ahead, an adventure that promised new friendship but led to a grim fate. Eisenhauer picked her up from her neighborhood in Blacksburg, and they drove to a secluded area in North Carolina, near the Virginia border. The drive was quiet, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. Nicole, unaware of the dangers that lay ahead, was just happy to be with someone she believed saw her as a friend. Upon arriving at the predetermined location, the atmosphere shifted. The secluded area, chosen by Eisenhauer for its privacy and isolation, became the stage for a heinous act. There, Eisenhauer betrayed Nicole's trust in the most brutal way. He first assaulted her, a violent act that left Nicole disoriented and fearful. Then, with calculated brutality, he took the shovel they had bought the day before and struck Nicole in the neck, a blow that broke her vertebrae and was intended to be fatal. But Nicole was a fighter. Despite her severe injury, she was still alive. It was then that Eisenhauer, in a final act of cruelty, used a knife to end Nicole's life. He stabbed her 14 times, 7 stabs on the head and face, 7 other stabs on her chest, and the fatal one, on the neck, ensuring her silence would be permanent. After committing the murder, Eisenhauer coldly disposed of her body off North Carolina Route 89, covering her with leaves and branches in an attempt to hide his crime. The quiet drive and the violent acts in the secluded woods marked the tragic end of Nicole Lovell's life, a life taken too soon by a person she thought was a friend. The betrayal was not just personal, but a stark reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind friendly online personas. The breakthrough in the investigation into Nicole Lovell's disappearance came swiftly due to a blend of traditional detective work and modern digital forensics. After Nicole was reported missing on January 28, 2016, the police immediately began to scour her bedroom for clues. They discovered her usernames and passwords scribbled on her bedroom wall, a naive oversight by Nicole that became a crucial lead. Investigators accessed Nicole's social media profiles and sifted through her communications. It was through these digital traces that they encountered an alarming amount of interaction between Nicole and a user named Dr._Tombstone, later identified as David Eisenhauer. This username alone painted a grim foreboding, and further scrutiny of their exchanges confirmed the police's worst fears. As they pieced together the timeline of Nicole's final hours, a neighbor provided a chilling confirmation. She recounted that Nicole had been playing with her children and mentioned a plan to meet an 18-year-old guy and run away with him. This revelation not only corroborated the digital evidence, but also added a sinister reality to the chats extracted from Nicole's accounts. The FBI intensified the investigation, delving deeper into the chats between Nicole and Eisenhauer. The messages were fraught with manipulation, with Eisenhauer masking his predatory intentions under the guise of affection and understanding. When the police brought Eisenhauer in for questioning, he maintained his innocence, claiming ignorance of any plan Nicole might have had. However, the content of his text exchanges with Natalie Keepers told a different story. Police analyzed their messages and discovered disturbing discussions about how to clean blood and eliminate its smell, details that were not just suspicious, but outright damning. These texts provided not only the motive, but also depicted a premeditated plan to cover up a heinous crime. Armed with this evidence, the police examined Eisenhauer's phone more thoroughly and established a connection between him and Keepers. The digital trail was irrefutable, leading to their arrests. This case highlighted the dark underbelly of online interactions and underscored the importance of digital footprints in solving modern crimes. The chats about blood cleanup were particularly pivotal, turning the tide in an already tragic investigation by pinning down the calculated steps taken post-murder, which ultimately led to the swift apprehension of both suspects. During the investigation, a particularly chilling moment unfolded when prosecutors revealed David Eisenhauer's initial reaction to being questioned by the police. When first approached by law enforcement on January 30, 2016, just days after Nicole's disappearance, and before her body had been discovered, Eisenhauer's response was cold and calculated. He told the officers, "I believe you should be out searching for her body and not here wasting your time with me." On January 30, 2016, 3 days after Nicole Lovell's disappearance, the police made a significant breakthrough that led directly to the arrests of David Eisenhauer and Natalie Keepers. Armed with evidence from Nicole's social media and the incriminating chats found on Eisenhauer's phone, the police were ready to confront Keepers about her involvement. During her interrogation, Keepers initially tried to downplay her role, but when presented with the chat logs detailing discussions about disposing of a body and cleaning up blood, she crumbled under the pressure. She confessed that Eisenhauer had killed Nicole and that she had helped him plan and cover up the crime. Keepers gave a detailed account of the murder, explaining how they drove Nicole to a secluded location, how Eisenhauer used a knife to end Nicole's life, and how they later disposed of her body in Surry County, North Carolina. Following Keepers' confession, the police arrested Eisenhauer. A search of his residence unearthed further damning evidence: the knife used in the murder and Nicole's minion's blanket, both of which had traces of Nicole's blood. Eisenhauer, however, maintained his innocence, denying any involvement in the murder despite the overwhelming evidence against him. The initial charges laid against them were grave. Eisenhauer was charged with abduction and first-degree murder, reflecting the premeditated nature of the crime. Keepers faced charges of being an accessory before the fact to first-degree murder and improper disposal of a body. These charges set the stage for a trial that would captivate and horrify the public as the full extent of their actions came to light. Also, on January 26, 2016, a day before Nicole's disappearance, surveillance footage captured David Eisenhauer and Natalie Keepers at a local Walmart purchasing a shovel that would later be used to bury Nicole's body. The footage showed them selecting the shovel together, a chilling prelude to the crime they were about to commit. This evidence was crucial as it not only linked them to the crime scene, but also demonstrated their joint participation in the planning and execution of the murder, underscoring their premeditated intent and collaborative effort in carrying out the heinous act. Natalie Keepers, a 19-year-old student at Virginia Tech, was studying aerospace engineering when she crossed paths with David Eisenhauer. Originally from Laurel, Maryland, she shared Eisenhower's academic rigor and interest in engineering, but differed markedly in personality. Described as intense and more outgoing than Eisenhower, Keepers was known for her analytical skills, which she unfortunately turned to a sinister use. Keepers met Eisenhower shortly after beginning her studies at Virginia Tech. Their friendship developed quickly, bonded through their shared courses and initially innocent conversations. However, as Eisenhower became involved with Nicole Lovell, he confided in Keepers, pulling her into the vortex of his plan. Keepers' role evolved from a confidant to an accomplice as she helped Eisenhower plot the crime. Their planning was meticulous and macabre. On January 26, 2016, the day before Nicole's disappearance, Keepers and Eisenhower purchased a shovel that would later be used to dig Nicole's grave. They also acquired cleaning supplies, a premeditated move to erase any traces of the crime they were about to commit. Post-murder, Keepers' actions were calculated and cold. She assisted in transporting Nicole's body to North Carolina and attempted to clean up the crime scene, demonstrating a disturbing level of detachment and foresight. Keepers' involvement did not go unnoticed. Her actions post-murder, especially her attempts to cover up the crime, were critical in the investigation, leading to her arrest along with Eisenhower. Her trial would later reveal the depth of her involvement, marking her not just as an accessory, but as a key participant in the tragic events that led to Nicole Lovell's death. As the investigation into Nicole Lovell's murder unfolded, the search for evidence extended beyond interviews and digital forensics. Law enforcement officials, along with volunteers, scoured the forest that lined the road to where Nicole's body was found. This intense search involved not only combing through the underbrush, but also divers exploring nearby lakes and ponds, hunting for any items that might have been discarded by Eisenhower and Keepers after the murder. In these efforts, divers retrieved a disturbed patch of mud and sticks that appeared to have been hastily covered, under which they found a bloodied shovel and items of clothing that were critical in linking the crime to Eisenhower and Keepers directly. Meanwhile, another team inspected David Eisenhower's car. In the trunk, detectives discovered conclusive and damning evidence: bloodstains that matched Nicole's DNA profile and the Minion's blanket she had taken with her on the night she vanished, now also bloodied. These findings painted a gruesome picture of the night's events and were pivotal in building the case against Eisenhower and Keepers. The presence of Nicole's blood in the trunk of Eisenhower's car and on the blanket, along with the shovel found submerged near the crime scene, corroborated the narrative that had been pieced together through Keepers' confession and the digital evidence collected by the police. This physical evidence linked both suspects to the murder unequivocally, demonstrating their attempts to cover up their grim actions and dispose of Nicole's body in a remote location. During the autopsy, forensics experts discovered small pieces of skin lodged under Nicole Lovell's fingernails. These were crucial pieces of evidence, suggesting a struggle had occurred during her final moments. The skin samples were immediately sent for DNA analysis, which later confirmed that the DNA matched David Eisenhower's profile. This evidence was pivotal as it directly placed him at the scene of the crime, contradicting his initial claims of innocence and further solidifying his role in Nicole's murder. This forensic detail helped paint a clearer picture of the events leading to Nicole's tragic death and was instrumental in the prosecution's case against Eisenhower. As the trial date approached, the legal teams on both sides prepared diligently for what would be a closely watched courtroom battle. The prosecution team gathered substantial evidence, including the DNA results from under Nicole's fingernails, the blood-stained Minions blanket, and the shovel used to bury her body, all crucial in proving David Eisenhower's direct involvement in the crime. Additionally, they compiled logs of the incriminating conversations between Eisenhower and Natalie Keepers, which detailed their sinister plans and efforts to cover up the murder. The defense attorneys for Eisenhower and Keepers prepared to challenge the prosecution's evidence, focusing on potential procedural errors and the credibility of forensic methods. They planned to argue that the evidence collected was circumstantial and to question the integrity of the DNA results. The stage was set for a contentious trial, with both sides ready to fiercely advocate for their positions. The trial, set to begin in March 2017, promised to reveal the disturbing details of the case and provide clarity on the events that led to Nicole's tragic death. His choice of words, suggesting a search for a body rather than a missing person, starkly contradicted the hopeful narrative that Nicole might be found alive, further entangling him in the web of his own lies. This early interaction with the police was used by the prosecution to underline his direct connection to the crime, bolstering their case against him with his own prematurely incriminating statements. On January 28th, David was arrested. On February 2, 2018, the courtroom was packed as the verdicts for David Eisenhower and Natalie Keepers were delivered. Eisenhower was found guilty of first-degree murder, abduction, and concealing a dead body. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison for the murder, 5 years for abduction, and an additional 10 years for concealing the body, totaling 65 years. However, 15 years have been canceled, making it 50 years in total. Natalie Keepers, who was arrested later on January 31st, found guilty of being an accessory before the fact to first-degree murder and concealing a dead body, received a 40-year sentence for her role in the crime and 5 years for helping hide the body, but her sentence was also shortened by 5 years, making it not 45 but 40 years in prison. David was also charged $5,000, which was for the family of Nicole. Media coverage of the trial had been extensive, and the verdicts were broadcasted widely, drawing comments from across the nation about the dangers of online interactions and the severity of the sentences handed to the young perpetrators. The general public reaction was one of vindication for Nicole's family, but also a reflection on what could be done to prevent such tragedies in the future. The sentences were seen as a necessary end to a painful chapter for Nicole's family, hoping to bring some degree of closure to a community shaken by such a horrific crime. Nicole Lovell's tragic end on January 27, 2016, deeply impacted not just her family, but the entire Blacksburg community and beyond. Her life, though brief, sparked significant discussions about the safety of children online, emphasizing the urgent need for vigilance and education in the digital age. The community rallied to honor her memory, establishing initiatives aimed at educating youths about the potential dangers of online interactions. Schools within and around Blacksburg started to implement more comprehensive digital literacy programs to teach students about privacy, the importance of reporting suspicious activities, and how to recognize predatory behavior. Furthermore, Nicole's story prompted local authorities to host workshops for parents, helping them understand social media's landscape and how they can better safeguard their children. Nicole's vibrant spirit, love for life, and creative talents are remembered through annual scholarships established in her name, aimed at supporting young people who show promise in the arts and sciences, reflecting Nicole's interests. As we look back on Nicole's life and legacy, questions remain about how society can protect vulnerable youths when they log on. How can we ensure that Nicole's story leads to positive change? What measures can be put in place to prevent such tragedies from recurring? Her legacy is not just a memory, it's a call to action, a reminder that in the digital world, vigilance should never sleep.